Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, the mailbag episode, we are talking Shohei Ohtani, Roki Sasaki, Gavin Lux, Will Smith, Walker Buehler, and so much more. Let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. So please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. My name is Jeff Snyder. My normal co-host is Vince Samperio, although it's just me today. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like a lot of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room for the last decade or so. So we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonmlb and use code all lowercase lockedonmlb for first deposit match up to $100. And this is, as I said at the top, it's a mailbag episode. We will be answering questions that we got from our listeners, from our Locked On Dodgers insiders, which coincidentally, if you do want to become a Locked On Dodgers insider, it's really easy. Just go to joinsubtext.com/lockedondodgers. We give a little bit of priority in these mailbag episodes to our insiders, have a lot of fun texting back and forth with our insiders there. So check that out. But let's just jump right into the mailbag. There's a lot to talk about. First thing, we've had several people ask about Roki Sasaki. There was a report by Bob Nightingale last week, maybe over the weekend, saying that rival executives are basically saying it's a done deal that Japanese superstar Roki Sasaki will be coming to the Dodgers next year. As of right now, Sasaki hasn't even been posted. I don't even know if it's a sure thing. We do know that there was, he held out in Japan, and then that got resolved. I haven't heard the full details. Last I knew, we didn't have all the details. So I would assume that part of that resolution was his club agreeing to post him after this season. But I don't know that for sure. But assuming he gets posted, everybody seems to think he's coming to the Dodgers. And, I don't have any more inside information than these executives that Bob Nightingale talked to. They probably have a better idea than I do. It is kind of interesting because I don't know that legally anybody is allowed to really know much about this because the Dodgers aren't allowed to be talking to Sasaki yet. And neither are other teams, but it seems like everybody thinks that's a sure thing. And one of the reasons is there was a report from Francis Romero, who is in tune with a lot of the Latin American baseball stuff, and which is why he is up on this, because Sasaki, if he does get posted after 2024, he will be like Shohei Ohtani after 2017, in that he won't be he will still be subject to the international bonus pools like Otani was, which is why basically all 30 teams are on roughly even footing. Nobody can offer him $300 million like the Dodgers were able to give Yoshinobu Yamamoto, because Sasaki, because of his age, he will be limited. He'll be signing a contract just like a player out of college or out of high school would be. The difference is he will most likely go straight to the big leagues like Otani did in 2018. But just like Otani, the first 3 years, or probably 2 years, because he'll end up being a Super 2 for service time, but the first 2 years, he's making basically the league minimum, and then he's eligible for arbitration and all of that, and then hits free agency after 6 years. It's just like somebody being drafted or signed internationally. That's the deal. But teams have budgets each year, how much they're allowed to spend on these international free agents. And the Dodgers, as of right now, have a whole lot more of that money left than a lot of teams do. Some teams don't have any money left. Some have very little left. The Braves have like $185,000 left. The second highest is, scanning this list, about 1.8 million. The A's have just over 1.8 million. Then the Dodgers have the most, $3.15 million. So the Dodgers can offer Sasaki more than any other team can. And it does seem like it's not a coincidence that the Dodgers have $3 million left in that international pool, with Sasaki likely to become available. It does seem like the Dodgers have their eye on Sasaki, and Sasaki probably has his eye on the Dodgers. It's something that is going to be a big story next offseason when we find out for sure about Sasaki being posted and all of that. And then, it'll be huge news. Just like Ohtani and Yamamoto were this last offseason, Sasaki, might be the best pitcher of the three. And and he's young. And so it would be pretty darn exciting if the Dodgers can get him. Right now, that's all we really know. And like I said, it's all that we legally can know because teams aren't allowed to talk to these players yet. So we'll have to see. Last thing I want to talk about in this segment before we jump into specific questions is more on Ohtani home run ball gate. Are we still putting gate at the end of all controversies? The woman who caught or picked up Ohtani's home run ball, we talked about it yesterday, what she got in return, a couple hats, a bat, a ball, all autographed by Ohtani. It was clarified that Ohtani didn't meet with her, but there was an article in The Athletic that, casting concern on the way the Dodgers security team handled it. Basically, she and her husband were separated and she felt pressured into making a deal. It's the ugly nature of business, of baseball. It is an interesting thing because, there's an auction house saying in that article that ball could be worth up to $100,000. I think that's a little bit crazy. But if the ball was authenticated, it's Ohtani's first home run with the team whose hat he's going to be wearing in the Hall of Fame. It's a big deal. And Ohtani memorabilia is huge. And I said yesterday, if it was like a 74th home run ball or something that was going to be worth millions of dollars, this is still not there. But it is a big deal. But in order to be worth that much, it has to be authenticated. And apparently one of the things that one of the cards the Dodgers pulled in this negotiating process was threatening to refuse to authenticate the ball. And then it's not worth very much at all. So basically they said, look, you can trade us this ball or you can take it home and it won't be worth much because it won't be authenticated. And the sad fact is that's true. That's how authentication works, because even though we have video of her getting that ball, there's no way of knowing for sure, the ball that she tries to sell, is it that ball or did she swap it out at home? All those things. That's why authentication exists. Apparently, by the way, the autographed items that she got in return aren't authenticated. Dodger spokesman did say that they're willing to talk to her about the transaction. It's kind of messy business. And part of that is why I said yesterday, like, I wouldn't really haggle. I'd be like, okay, can I get a picture with Ohtani and call it good? Like, the ball, it has sentimental value to him and it would have value to a collector. But for me, it's like, I don't know. Unless it's actually going to make me rich and $100,000, I don't get me wrong. If one of you wants to send me $100,000, then let me know. I'll send you my address or my Venmo or whatever. In fact, my Venmo's on the screen right now. You can figure it out. But it's not going to make you rich. So if it was like life setting money, if it was a $5 million baseball, I would haggle. I would say, I'm holding on to this ball. I'm not leaving here until you authenticate it. And I would get as much money for it as possible. But a ball like this, that it's really just sentimental value for Ohtani for the most part, I'd be like, okay, I'm giving it over. And to her credit, the woman who got the ball, that's how she seems to have felt too. Like, her husband seems more upset than she is, at least in the article. The way they handled it, they separated them, didn't let them talk to each other. I just wouldn't have stood for that. But it is what it is, which is a saying I hate. So I hate that I just said it. But ultimately Ohtani got the ball back, and it means the most to him. So I'm glad he got it back. I do wish that maybe it had been handled a little bit better. There was some interesting stuff about the translation of stuff, the interpreter stuff, because at one point it seemed like Ohtani had said that he had met with the fam, but then he hadn't. But a lot of that was just lost in translation from Japanese to English. So anyway, I'm going to come back in a minute. I am going to answer your specific questions about Miguel Rojas, Walker Buehler, and a bunch more. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. And please continue to keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Factor. Eat stress-free this spring with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never frozen meal is chef-crafted, dietitian approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from a weekly menu of 35 options, including popular options like Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, or Vegan and Veggie. Also, discover more than 60 add-ons every week like breakfast, on-the-go lunch, snacks, and beverages to help you stay fueled and feel good all day long. What are you waiting for? Get started today and fuel up for your springtime goals. Get chef-prepared meals on the table in 2 minutes with Factor's ready-to-eat meals so you can get back to doing what you love this spring. It's tailored to your schedule. You can customize your weekly meals with the flexibility to get as much or little as you need. Pause or reschedule deliveries to suit your lifestyle. Factor is your solution for fast premium meals without the need for cooking. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnMLB50 and use code LockedOnMLB50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box. That's code LockedOnMLB50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnMLB50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box while your subscription is active. This episode is also brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. Spring training's over and baseball season's officially underway, so don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your PrizePicks entries. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, take your pick of more or less and add them to your PrizePicks entry today. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and enormous selection of players and stat types are what make PrizePicks the #1 fantasy sports app. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions and special offers for the biggest moments in sports. Download the app today, PrizePicks, and use code LockedOnMLB, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LockedOnMLB, all lowercase, in the PrizePicks app. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Hey, I'm back. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Especially want to thank our everydayers. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. We're on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts. You can also go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. It's text message based interaction where we text you our thoughts on news and rumors and stuff, and you can text back and forth one-on-one conversations. It's a lot of fun. Just a few bucks a month, free 14-day trial. So check that out. You can also check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the 2 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. And remember, you can catch every pitch of the hometown broadcast for every Dodger game on SiriusXM and the SXM app just by searching for Dodgers. They take on the Cubs today, an early day, late morning California time, playing against the Cubs. So if you're at work or whatever, can't be watching on TV, just launch the SXM app and search for Dodgers, and let's do it that way. Let's get into the questions. This segment, we're going to focus mostly on Gavin Lux and Miguel Rojas. We had several different questions relating to one or both of those guys. And so we're going to dig into those. Start with our insider questions because, like I said, Locked On Dodgers insiders get a little bit of priority on these things. And these two are basically related. Mike Markham, an insider, asked, has early success earned Miguel Rojas some additional playing time and not just for platoon situations? And Elliot Krieger says, do you think Gavin Lux should be a little bit nervous batting 200 with Rojas at 333 with 2 home runs? Do you think they will effectively platoon them? So Rojas will play half the time when they want a right-handed bat. And then he goes on to say it might help Mookie Betts to get more time at second base too, just for his overall health and everything. Elliot says, frankly, I'd be okay with them playing Rojas as our everyday shortstop. I prefer seeing Mookie at second and Lux. I'm okay with not seeing him much. He's poor defensively, and we don't have room at DH. So a lot there that I'll dig into. I don't think they're going to give up on Gavin Lux. I do think Lux brings a lot to the table offensively. He is a better hitter than Rojas, despite the fact that Rojas has better stats right now. And that doesn't necessarily mean that Lux will have better stats than Rojas this season, but I mean, he is a better hitter. Rojas is a glove first shortstop, and Rojas definitely has his virtues as a hitter. He doesn't strike out much, and he does have power. Like, he has batting practice power. If you go to Dodgers batting practice, you see a lot of Miguel Rojas home runs, and we do see that sometimes. And so, it's not crazy to think he can figure it out. In the 2020 season, Rojas was actually a good hitter. And with that defense, so it's possible that Rojas could force this issue, but not based on 1 week. And so I think the Dodgers are definitely going to give us some time. I do think that if Rojas is hitting, it does open them up more to playing him more, because if he's not hitting, it's hard to play him no matter how good the defense is. But the points that Elliott made about Mookie playing some time at second base to make it easier on him, I think that's all valid. I do think Mookie is a better second baseman than he is a shortstop, although he's played really good shortstop this season. All in all, it's they're not going to give up on Lux, but I do think Rojas, I guess answering Mike's question, Rojas has earned a little bit of additional playing time. I would guess that, like this weekend, for example, the Dodgers face a righty today, Kyle Hendricks, and actually that kind of segues into Jacob Norling's question on Twitter, who breaks out first, James Outman or Gavin Lux. Great chance on Friday with Kyle Hendricks on the mound, but then back-to-back lefties. It's tough time to try and get the lefties going. The Dodgers do face back-to-back lefties on Saturday and Sunday. And I would guess that Outman and Lux each get one start out of those two games. I don't think they're going to sit them for both of those games. I've always said they're not really going to platoon those guys, but when they do get days off, it will be against a lefty. So I expect Lux to start 2 of the 3 games this weekend, game against Hendricks and 1 of the games against lefties, and same for Outman. Lux he hits the ball hard when he hits it. I think when he gets going with his speed and everything, I think there's a lot of value that he brings to the team offensively that they're not ready to give up on yet, basically. But I guess the other thing about Elliott's question, it's not half the time, because platoons, there are a lot more right-handed pitchers than left-handed pitchers. And so a platoon guy who hits right-handed only gets a third or a fourth of the starts. And honestly, that's kind of what you'd hope for Rojas anyway. And so we might end up sooner than later seeing a straight platoon where Lux plays against right-handed pitchers and Rojas plays against left-handed pitchers. And I'd be okay with that, at least until Lux kind of forces the issue. And then it's on Lux to say, every at bat you're getting has the platoon advantage. So you have a chance to force this issue and prove that you deserve to be starting. I have been happy with Lux's defense at second base. Not going to win any Gold Gloves, but he hasn't thrown any balls away. He's had a couple throws that were questionable, but for the most part, you watch Gavin Lux play, and if you didn't know that he had struggles with his throwing, you wouldn't know it by watching him play, if that makes sense. So I've been happy with that. One other question related to Rojas that's not about the playing time situation came from Charlie O on Twitter at Bear7369. He says he wants to know my thoughts on the pitch com being heard on the broadcast on Sunday night. And I didn't hear this in real time because I'm trying to remember Sunday. I was driving. No, I got home. I drove home on Sunday. I turned on the game. I was driving for the first 7 innings or so of that game. And so I didn't hear the Rojas being mic'd up part. Rojas, or was it Kike? Whichever one it was. Rojas and Kike were both mic'd up at different times this weekend, and you could hear it on both of them. I think this was Kike on Sunday, now that I think of it. But you could hear the pitch calls while they were talking to Kike, because the mic setup is in his ear and the pitch comm is right above his ear. And so you could hear changeup or whatever coming in. And so there was some consternation about this. Dave Roberts even asked about it. It doesn't worry me at all, because teams don't have access to the live feed and don't have any way to convey that information anyway. And so after the Astros cheating, Major League Baseball cracked down on what teams have access to. So like even the TV in the clubhouse is on a 10-second delay for that reason, because teams do still sometimes, without a runner on second base, they'll just put down regular old signs. and that's good. They should be able to do that. And so really this is no different. Hearing the word changeup or fastball on the pitch comm is no different than seeing a catcher put down 1 fingers or 3 fingers or whatever. It's just that is the same exact thing with no benefit to the other team. It was kind of funny and quirky when I saw the replay of it. Other than that, I don't think it's much of an issue. I do suspect that ESPN will try to figure out a solution to that, even just putting the mic in the other ear, whichever side, or telling whoever's mic'd up, put your pitch comm on the other side of your hat so that it's not right by the mic. But, overall, I think it's a non-issue. I'm going to come back in a minute. We've got questions about Walker Buehler, bullpen games, Will Smith's contract, and other stuff. So thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, a registered broker-dealer. And back. Thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember to become an everydayer by watching and listening every weekday morning. Become an insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles over on YouTube, 24/7 streaming channels. And check out every pitch of every Dodger game on SiriusXM and the SXM app by searching for Dodgers. Let's jump back into our questions. We'll see how many of these we get to. We did have probably more questions than we have time for. But let's see. So Kevin, our buddy Kevin at Blue Goon 82, he says, it looks like there will still be a healthy number of bullpen games until Walker Buehler returns. Will this usage wear down the pen eventually, kind of like we saw yesterday with Dinelson Lamet as the only available option to close? Is this a good idea long-term? I guess my main answer is I kind of reject the premise because I don't think we're going to see that many, because I think Walker Buehler is going to be back pretty soon. He's making another rehab start this weekend, and then probably 2 more rehab starts, and then he's back. So he'll be back in a couple weeks. And the Dodgers, they had Thursday, the April 4th off. They have the next 2 Thursdays off also, and Monday the 22nd. So they have 3 days off in the next 2.5 weeks. And so they're kind of getting that extra day of rest for most guys anyway. I would guess we only see maybe 1 bullpen game before Buehler comes back. And so I don't think that's going to be enough to wear down the bullpen very much. Even this one, like, it's not so much that they only had Dinelson Lamet. They had Daniel Hudson. They just chose to use him in the 8th inning. And so and I think there were other guys who probably could have pitched if they had to, if the game had gone to extra innings or whatever. But, it is a calculated risk as far as running a bullpen game, what it does to your pitching staff the rest of the time. But they did this. They did the bullpen game on Tuesday, knowing that they had a day off on Thursday that would reset everything. So, I don't think they'd want to do it the whole season, but I don't think it's that big of a concern because Buehler is theoretically coming back soon. A related note question from our insider, Steve Farowich. He asked, why don't teams use their rehabbing pitchers in major league games instead of going with the bullpen game? The example to use are Walker Buehler and Justin Verlander. Why don't the Dodgers just have Buehler throw his 4 innings of rehab in a big league game, and then use the bullpen after that or whatever? He says they don't have to worry about the pros like that having their confidence shaken like they would bringing up a rookie who isn't quite ready. And we've seen that sometimes, like Clayton Kershaw, a few times when he was injured, he just didn't do rehab starts. Just like, I'll just do my rehab in the big leagues. And if the pitcher is the better option, the thing is, like with Buehler's so competitive, and he's not gonna. And the fact is, Buehler's in a contract year, so I don't think he wants to do a rehab start against big leaguers where the stats count and are going to affect his next contract. And I don't think Buehler was necessarily a better option than the bullpen game, going with 4 relievers like they did. That seemed to work pretty well for them. I don't know that Buehler would have been a better option. Now, if they could do a rehab start without, while staying on the injured list, like they do with a regular rehab start, so they're not eating up a roster spot, I think there would be value in that. But the fact is, Buehler would have to be on the active roster, which means they'd have to boot somebody else off the roster. And so then Buehler's just a starting pitcher who can only go 3 or 4 innings. And so it's actually worse for the bullpen, I think, if that makes sense. Next question from our insider, Kevin from Monrovia. He has a question about Will Smith's new deal. He says, given that Smith is 29 years old now, do you see him playing catcher for the duration of his contract, or does he convert to first base in a couple of years when Freddie's deal is up? It's a good question. My main takeaway from Will Smith's deal, and I didn't get to talk about this much because it was when I was driving down for opening day. So Vince did the episode by himself talking about this contract. My main thought on Smith's contract is it's a 10-year deal because they could get away with doing a 10-year deal, but it's not really a 10-year deal. It was, let's give you $140 million and we'll spread it as far as we can without Major League Baseball getting mad at us. But the fact is, a 10-year deal for a 29-year-old is plausible. And so they could get away with that. But I think the Dodgers are hoping to get 5 or 6 good years from Will Smith from this point on. And then, whether he stays on as a backup catcher or whatever it is, I don't think the Dodgers went into this deal expecting him to be their catcher for the next 10 years. Now, if the bat keeps working, what Kevin throws out is a possibility of moving him to a different position, first base, third base, somewhere, even the outfield, a corner outfield spot. Freddie Freeman does only have 3 years left after this year on his deal. The Dodgers do have catching prospects, and that's another part of it. When you've got Dalton Rushing and Diego Cartaya and Tyrone Lorenzo as catching prospects, it's like, well, are you actually locking up Smith to be your catcher for all this time? We don't know all the answers to that, but I do think I wouldn't be surprised at all. I would be more surprised if Smith doesn't change positions than if he does. I think it's more than likely. And the question is which position, when, because, the fact is Rushing is probably going to be ready while Freddie Freeman is still on a contract. And so Smith can't switch to first base, but, could Smith switch to third base, or could Smith and Rushing platoon at third base and catcher? There's all sorts of options, but it will involve some position changing. It also might involve some prospects getting traded, just because if there's not a spot. So, there's a lot of questions there, but I think the main answer to Kevin's question is, Will Smith isn't going to be the Dodgers starting catcher for the whole 10 years of that contract. I would be shocked if that's the case. Let's see. Buehlerberger at Dodger Wave on Twitter asks, who ends up with more home runs at the end of the season, Mookie or Ohtani? Right now, Mookie has 5, Ohtani has 1. Last year, Mookie hit 39, Ohtani hit 44, and Ohtani missed the last month of the season. I think Ohtani will still end up with more home runs. 5-1 isn't a huge head start. 9 games isn't a huge head start as far as for Ohtani to make up. I expect both of them to be around 40, but I expect Ohtani to have more. I mean, it'll be relatively close. I do think the two of them will lead the team in homers. I think Max Muncy will end up with his usual 35, and Freddie will push 30, and Will Smith will have 25, and Teoscar will have 30-ish. It's going to be a good season for Dodgers power hitters, I think. But I do think Ohtani remains the gold standard of Dodgers power hitters, even though he just finally hit his first one on Wednesday night. Another question from Kevin at Blue Goon 82 says the Dodgers used to use the last 26-man roster spot for optioning guys up and down, the Mitch White spot, before the roster rules stopped this. Will the Chris Matt Lamet spot be used similarly with fringe free agents instead of fringe prospects to keep the pen fresh? I think that's something they're open to, and whether it's free agents or guys on waiver wire or whatever. But it seems like they like the idea of Dinelson Lamet being on their team. And so I don't necessarily think, Chris Matt made sense that he was going to be that kind of spot where he's just going to come up briefly and then get DFA'd. I know people were upset about that because he did pitch well in the one game. He's still Nabil Krismat. We'll see if he leaves the organization or not. The Dodgers are going to have to get a little bit more creative with keeping pitchers fresh, even if it is just leaving them up for longer. And so you have to kind of plan around that because the roster limits do mean you can only get optioned 5 times in a season. And so, Kyle Hurts already used one of those. And we talked about that when they optioned him. Maybe that means that next time they call him up, they're planning on keeping him up longer. But I do think we will maybe occasionally see guys like Chris Matt get called up and then DFA'd rather than wasting an option on Kyle Hurt or somebody like that. What's his name? Landon Knack, those guys. I don't know who else is on the Oklahoma City roster, guys like that who might, because they traded TJ McFarland, but guys who they might call up and then just DFA after a couple games. But yeah, they're going to have to get creative for sure with the roster this year to keep guys fresh. Last question is, where did it go? Oh, from Ed. This one came via email. He says, why do the Dodgers seem to be much better at developing young pitchers than they are developing young position players, particularly hitters? Or put another way, why do other teams seem to be better at developing position players? Or is my assumption wrong? And I don't know for sure, but I think the pitchers get more publicity maybe. But when you look at the Dodgers track record, especially if you go back, the last few years, maybe that's true, but you look at big league hitters who the Dodgers drafted and developed or whatever, you've got Jock Peterson and Cody Bellinger and Corey Seager, and Seager was a highly, touted prospect, but they still got him late in the first round. Bellinger, they got in the third round, I think. Jock wasn't a huge prospect, and they, helped turn those guys into stars, of varying degrees, but all stars at some level. And then you've got guys like, Zach McKinstry and Kyle Farmer, who are real players on major league teams right now. You've got guys like Michael Busch, who they traded and has a chance to be a big star. I think a lot of it maybe is that the Dodgers don't have the luxury of the patience to let these guys show it in the big leagues. So a guy like Miguel Vargas, he struggled. They had to send him down because they want to win a World Series. And so Miguel Vargas might end up being a really good major league hitter, whether it's for the Dodgers or somebody else. We don't know that yet. Gavin Lux, they haven't necessarily had the luxury at times of letting him just give him runway, go out there, fail on the big stage until you get it right. So, and for whatever reason, maybe they've been able to do that more with pitchers. But I think if you looked at the stats, the other thing is if you're comparing the Dodgers to everybody else as a lump, then yeah, it's less. But I think if you looked at the Dodgers compared to individual teams, I would suspect that they develop as many, an average number of quality big league hitters. I don't even know how I'd go about studying that, but that's kind of my perception. Anyway, I'd be interested to know if that means anything to you, Ed. I think that's going to do it for me for today. I think I got to most of the questions, tried to power through them. So that's going to do it for us, for me, for today and for this week. Dodgers take on the Cubs this weekend. Hopefully weather will permit, and then they'll head to Minnesota. Thank you all for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Please become an everydayer by watching and listening every weekday morning. Become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 24/7 streaming over on YouTube, and listen to every pitch of every Dodger game on SiriusXM or the SXM app by searching for Dodgers. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. I'm on Twitter at Snydog. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSense91. Our DMs are open there. You can also email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com. or send us a voicemail or a text message at 323-863-LOCK-5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you on Monday.